Please note that in this show, you might hear graphic descriptions or language that may not be appropriate for everyone. Listener discretion advised. Welcome to Parentless Podcast. I am your host, Stephanie Relaford. On this show, we're going to be speaking with others who have experienced the loss of one or both of their parents or parental figures. As we heard in episode 12 with Louisa Velarde, being parentless is like an island, and I don't know how to swim. Thank you for being my life jacket.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cara Lidberg. I am, 39 years old from Orlando, Florida. I grew up in Cocoa Beach area. I moved to Las Vegas and California to dance professionally, and then came back here when that was all done. And now we're settled here in Orlando.
Very nice. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
So tell me why we're here. Who was your person?
So I have two, parents that have both passed. My dad passed 2013 and my mom in 2016. So it was pretty back to back. And my mom was definitely my person.
So you were a lot closer to your mom?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, let's start with Dad. What was your dad's name?
John.
Oh, my dad too.
Really?
How do you spell your John?
John.
All right. Good deal. I have a little dad John club. John Dad club. I don't know. Never thought about it until now. So now there's three of us.
Wild.
When was his birthday?
October 2nd, 1949.
Okay. And when did he pass away?
11/17/2013. So, maybe 4 years prior. So my dad had a brain aneurysm and he ended up getting a stent put in, and they said it should be fine. Like, this will never happen again, right? Like, he drove himself to the hospital because he had a headache, and he's like, something's wrong. He went to the emergency room and they fixed him up with the brain aneurysm. So fast forward to 2013, I'm emailing him back and forth because I'm living in Las Vegas at the time, and he was here in Orlando. So I was emailing him about picking me up for Thanksgiving because I was flying in and he was going to pick me up for Thanksgiving, and he never responded. And that was so unlike him to not respond to my emails. So I called the police because he was living by himself. My parents were divorced. I called the police to go do a well check on him. And I'll backtrack. I had actually asked my best friend to do it, and I'm so glad she didn't, because if she would have walked in on what she walked in on, it would not have been good. So the police, I didn't hear from them the whole rest of the night. I was like, what? I just asked you to go do a well check. Why aren't you calling me back? My aunt calls me and she said, hey, the police called me. They forgot to write down your number, or they didn't write it down correctly, and they found your dad dead. So I was like, okay, well, this is shocking to hear it from her. And the police told me that the dog was inside, just all alone. My dad was sitting in his favorite chair, and he had been dead for 3 days. No neighbors called anything. No one. They were just like, oh, it's weird. We haven't really seen him, when I talked to them later. But it turns out he had another brain aneurysm and heart failure, a heart attack at the same time. So.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Double.
Yeah, it was a time. I was actually doing a big show in Las Vegas. I was a professional dancer at the time. So I was doing the Latin Grammys, and I had a rehearsal, and I had to go finish the show, film the show, and then fly home.
Then you ended up going home.
Yes.
Then?
I had to go clean up everything. The next door neighbor said he would clean this is so strange. He said he would clean the chair, and then he ended up getting sick because he didn't clean it correctly. It was so wild. So my mom didn't want to have to deal with his house. They weren't married. They had nothing together anymore. She didn't want to deal with the house. So we just put the house up for sale. I got everything out of the house that was meaningful to me and to him. And then we just sold everything out. We sold the house, sold everything else. And that was basically it. The biggest backstory is that I hadn't talked to my dad in almost 10 years prior to his death. Him and my mom, he cheated on my mom right when I was in college, and I like blamed him. I didn't want to talk to him about it. I was heartbroken, and I had made amends with him in July, and he passed away in November.
How did you get to make amends with him?
He had been emailing me that basically he was getting scammed by someone. And I was like, Dad, what? No, like I'm not letting you get scammed by some person in another country. So he was like, well, I'm going to come out to where I was living in Las Vegas at the time. And we just met up and we talked about it and kind of talked through everything and made amends. And that's why I was going to come home and have him pick me up so I could spend Thanksgiving with him for the first time in a long time.
What is your favorite or the most meaningful item that you got out of his house?
His college sweatshirt, which is so random. And I don't know why, but it's this green sweatshirt from Slippery Rock. We went to Slippery Rock in Pennsylvania. And I cut it up so it's like a little off the shoulder thing. And I love it. I wear it all the time.
Very good.
Yeah.
Do you have a smell, sight, taste, or sound that reminds you of him?
Yeah, oddly enough, cigarettes, because he was a cigarette smoker. So, and it's not like prevalent anymore. People don't smoke. So when I smell it, or I'll see like a cigarette in a 7-Eleven cup, because he always has 7-Eleven drink. That's a gas station down here in Florida. Yeah, that makes me think of him immediately.
Was your mom around for that time?
She did. She told me later she didn't really want to help me, but she did because she would do anything for me, right? So she was with me. I'm an only child as well.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So she came with me, helped me do everything, tie up all the loose ends. And of course, I saw her mourn too, because she had been married to him for over 30 years. So it was hard for her too. I finally understood more about their relationship. Like, it was always they kept everything from me growing up. Like, I didn't know when they argued. I didn't know when things were good or bad between them. It was very like everything was behind the scenes. And when I was going through stuff, I would see letters that he would write to her because he didn't know how the words to tell her what was going on. And like, I saw an apology letter for cheating on him, on her, that, he wished he could take it all back. And he, like, in another letter asked if she would come back to him. And so there was a lot that I didn't know that kind of was brought to surface because of his death.
Do you have a larger respect for your dad after you found those?
Yeah. Yes. Because I thought it was just him, like, being a jerk, right? Like, just bailing on my mom. But there was so much more to it, like that he was trying to voice himself, but he did not know how. And it was just a lot more than I knew as a 17-year-old. So.
Right. Do you feel like you're gypped from that time then? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You're about to embark on a new journey.
Oh, yeah. So much time. And and also he never met my kids, all of that, like the same with my mom, like all of that is brought up too. Like, I would have had that relationship because we mended things and it would have gotten stronger and better. And the craziest part is my son was born on my dad's birthday.
See, told you dates mean things. Wow.
Yeah. 10-2 coming up here.
Did you have any hint that might happen?
So my due date was like September 28th or 29th or something. No, you know what? So the day my mom died is September 29th. And I thought it was he'd either be born on the day my mom died or my dad's birthday. And he waited till my dad's birthday.
Wow.
But I knew it'd be either one of those days. I knew it. And my husband's like, no, he's not. That's all, whatever. That's not going to happen. And then sure enough, he came on my dad's birthday.
Mm. Did you name your son anything to do with your dad?
Yeah, he's Pierce John. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I was bummed that my dad never met my husband because I met my husband a couple years later.
Do you talk a lot about your dad with your husband?
Not enough. I talk about my mom more, but I just realized I need to talk about my dad more. Even to my kids, I talk about my mom, but I have a hard time talking about my dad for some reason. And maybe because of that relationship was a little bit wonky, but I've got to do more.
Yeah. Do you have any pictures of your dad around?
No, I have all the ones are of my mom. So I need to.
Is there more about your dad that you would like to say? I'll have more questions about him, but I've been interrupting your story here. So.
Oh, no, you're not interrupting at all. No, that's pretty much it. I've learned a lot from him after his death. You know,
what's the biggest thing that you've learned?
The way that I communicate is a lot like him, and I prefer to write things down. And I realize like I need to work on my communication because people can't read your mind, and it's, you know, it's a two-way street. Whereas like in my head, it's like all in my head, and I'll write it down, but no one's hearing about it.
Well, hey, props to you for coming on the show then. I also prefer to write something down if it's going to be an important talk. And so, yeah, is it difficult for you to be here and talk?
It is. Yeah, because I haven't really talked about it like this openly, you know?
Yeah. Did you remember like a saying, or did he tell jokes, or just any little phrase that you remember?
I don't remember a phrase, but I just remember him being like he loved the movies that were like stupid humor. Like, I don't know how old you are, but the, like Men at Work and like Steve Martin kind of movies, you know, stuff like that. And so my husband likes those kind of movies as well. And it always just kind of like ties in. So he reminds me of my dad sometimes when he wants to watch those movies, you know.
Did he have a silly sense of humor?
Oh, yeah. Super playful.
Did he have a nickname for you at all?
They both called me Care, but it wasn't one specific. Oh, you know what? He did. He called me Scooter when I was a baby.
Guessing you scooted around the floor, maybe?
Yeah. It's Scooter, Scooty. My mom still continued with the Scooty for a while.
Did you have to tell her to stop?
Yeah.
Those nicknames are hard to get out of, for sure.
Yeah.
Do you believe in signs at all? We talked about dates and that relevance, but do you have any signs?
I do, and I don't ever feel anything. Oh, yes. Okay, so I did, when I lived in Las Vegas, it was like maybe a few weeks or a month afterwards. I was in bed. My dogs at the time were still sleeping in bed with me. Now they're not allowed to. But one of my dogs sat up at the end of the bed, just sat straight up. So I woke up, I had like chills, and I swear my dad came in to tell me he was okay. Like I felt him, saw his face, and he said, I'm okay. Like, I'm okay. Everything's okay. So then I expected my mom to do the same thing, and I haven't felt that at all from her. But that's the only sign I've gotten from him. Like that was it. Like it was kind of like he did that, and then it's like, I'm good. Like now I can go, you know?
Did you notice a difference, I guess, in how you felt about his death before and after?
My anxiety peaked. I thought I was going to die from a brain aneurysm. I wouldn't sleep. Like after he passed, I was like, I'm not going to bed. Like I'm going to die in my sleep of a brain aneurysm and not know it, you know? So I wasn't sleeping. So I think maybe I just needed to have him say that to me so I could be okay, you know? And then I was okay after that.
Wow. And you were able to sleep and being okay.
Yeah.
Well, you needed that.
Yeah.
What do you feel like? Do you feel like your dad is looking down on you, or what do you think he's up to?
No, you know what? It's wild. This whole thing has made me not really believe in someone up there being like, oh, you get to die. You're going to die. You're going to die. You know, like, because my mom passed when I was pregnant, and then I was like, no, like this is not how I'm not vibing with this anymore. So like, I think maybe they're watching to make me feel better, but I feel like when you're dead, you're dead. But I also believe like, then it's weird. It's a weird mix. Like I also believe in like signs and stuff like that too. It was a battle for sure. I was still okay with my dad. I was like, oh yeah, I still believe in God. And then after my mom, like this can't be right. Like why are there terrible people walking the earth and nothing happened? Like their parents are fine, you know, like not terrible, but why did they have to go? And who's deciding this? Like there's not just someone deciding this. It's just life.
If you've enjoyed what you've heard, please consider sharing the show with a friend or rating and reviewing wherever you're listening right now. This will help get the word out about the show, and if one person can be helped by listening to someone's story here, that is amazing. If you would like to share your story with me, you can visit the website at www.backhomemedia.com/parentlesspodcast. You can also email me at parentlesspodcast@gmail.com. Another way to get a hold of me is to find me on Instagram or Facebook, also at Parentless Podcast. And lastly, if you're a phone person, please leave me a voicemail at 623-396-6069. If you love the show and you'd like to help with any special projects that might go on at Parentless Podcast or just be privy to some special extras, go ahead and visit patreon.com/Parentless Podcast.
So my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer a couple months before she found out my dad was cheating on her. And so that was why I was so upset with him, which was, almost 13. It was when I was in, 2001, she was diagnosed. And so, I was so mad at him because she was going through that and he wasn't there for her. But I found out later, he tried to be there for her, but she didn't let him, right? Because she was so mad. So then she went into remission for 7 years. She was in remission for 7 years, and it came back in her liver. And I got married in June of 2016, and she passed in September of 2016.
Was she able to attend your wedding?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She was just starting to get bloated and kind of she didn't know what was going on, why she was bloating so much. And then after we got back from our honeymoon, I found out I was pregnant on our honeymoon. We told her, and it's after I told her, it went downhill from there. And it's almost like she kind of just gave up. And she told one of my best friends that she told her, Sarah, I'm just so tired. She was just so tired. And so I told her we were having a baby. And then when I told her we were having a girl, it was right. When I found out we were having a girl, I knew my mom was dying. I knew she wasn't going to make it, because I was always holding out hope that some miracle, procedure, drug, I don't know, something was going to save her again, because she was always okay, even through all this cancer. And then when they called me to tell me it was a girl, it's my heart knew that she wasn't going to make it.
Did you feel anything the one person leaving and another person coming in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. And my daughter is very much like my mom. And her name is Parker Catherine. My mom's name was Catherine. So
you have a little bit of your parents with you every day.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, in more ways than that. But
yeah.
When your mom attended your wedding, you said she was just starting to show some things.
Yep. And she hid everything. I had no idea she was even going back to the doctor. She always hid everything, just like the fighting with my dad or whatever. She kept everything from me to protect me. So I had no idea that stuff was going on. The cancer was back and that it was bad. So then when we got back from the honeymoon, I asked my stepdad, because she had remarried, and he told me and started telling me to start going to the hospital, the doctor visits with her and stuff. And so the doctors were telling me what was going on, because she wasn't. And they gave her a year to live, and that was in July. And then she passed in September, so she was just done.
So you had quite a bit of things going on all at once. What was your mom's reaction to then you kind of going to the doctor's appointments with her and kind of just finding out that she was sick again?
She definitely didn't like me being there. She was always I'm fine. I'm okay. It's going to be okay. And I'm but it's not, Mom. This is a lot more than you're telling me, And I would even try to talk to her, how are you feeling about this? How are you feeling that the doctor just gave you a year to live? How are you feeling? And she's we'll talk about it later. So she never really wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, there's not really a later, is there? Does that change anything with the way that you parent your kids, knowing that tomorrow is never promised?
I am more open with my daughter about how I'm feeling and what's going on. I'm trying to communicate more with her, but I need to be more cognizant of, what I could just say with my dad, not communicating. My mom clearly wasn't communicating either. So that's a huge lesson for me to be more open with my communications.
And your kids, do you talk to them about your parents?
For sure. Yes. My son, he's going to be 2. So not so much him, but Parker knows about my mom and that she's passed away. And we dropped off my mother-in-law one time at the airport, and I started crying, and she said, "Mommy, do you miss your mommy?" Like, she has that intuition. Like, she knows when I'm sad like that, and it's about a mom, that it's about my mom. So she'll always like kind of love on me and hug on me. Like, and she knows.
Is there anything with your mom that just really reminds you smell, sight, taste, sound?
Oh yeah. So when I was searching for a baby shower dress, and I couldn't find anything. So I went to, finally, the last store I went to was White House Black Market, because that was her favorite. And I was like, I guess I'll just go in. So I found a dress, I tried it on, and my best friend was there with me. And she was actually in the hospital with me. My mom went to hospice. She fell at their house one time. So my stepdad called and said, "Hey, we're going to transfer her to hospice." And I went, and this is, sorry, such a sidetrack, but I went, and like, it wasn't my mom anymore. And, you know, like, just someone was feeding her, and they just gave her first morphine. And I went and laid with her, and I told her that I was going to name Parker Catherine, and just like tears, just, she understood that. And then they transferred her. Like, I knew that was it. And they transferred her to hospice. And I swear she wanted to go then. But because I came in the room, she didn't. Like, they had told me her feet were cold, like all the signs of when she's like leaving. And then she wouldn't leave until I left. I stayed the night with my friend Sarah and my husband. And the next morning I was like, I gotta go. I gotta take a nap. I can't be here anymore. Like, just the sounds and all that was too much. Right. And I left, and I got home, and I took a bath, and like the candle blew out, and the nurse called me. And I was like, "No, I already know what you're telling me." So she like waited till I left, and waited till my stepdad left so that she could go on her own.
I have goosebumps over here.
Protecting me at the very end, right? So I was with my friend Sarah at the White House Black Market, and I tried on the dress, and we loved the dress. And all of a sudden, this like rush of my mom's perfume came into the dressing room. And I said, "Sarah, you got to go see who that is. Like, is there someone out there?" And there was no one in any of the dressing rooms. We checked all the dressing rooms. There was no one. And it was just like, Sarah started crying. I was crying. Like, she even recognized the smell. So it was kind of like my mom was there. But that's the only time I felt that from her. So I just wanted, like, in my head, I think that she's supposed to come to me the way my dad did. But I think she's too busy taking care of other people still.
She took care of people then?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She took care of her dad until her dad was 95 when he passed away. But all of her, like her sister, she was one of 4. So she took care of everyone else. And her sister passed right after she did, actually, like 4 to 6 months after my mom passed.
Was her sister sick?
She had a random like eye surgery, and then complications from the eye surgery.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm just so grateful that I had that opportunity too, right? Like, I wish that they hadn't given the morphine when they did, but just to know, like you said, like just to know that she heard me and she was there, and like my husband got to say goodbye, and she was still in there, right? But even at the hospital, I don't know if you have any experience with. So the nurse kept telling me to talk to her, and I was just like, but I can't. Like, it was just this weird block where I just laid with her, but I couldn't talk. She's like, talk about your day. And I'm like, what do you mean talk about my day? My mom is dying. I'm not going to talk about my day. So I ended up yelling at the nurse, which was so rude. And I felt terrible, but they were like, no, this happens all the time. You know, like they're used to this, all the emotions and stuff. But I had like guilt for a half a second that I couldn't talk to her at the end, you know. My stepdad was so good. He was like showing her pictures of them together. And I'm like, I just couldn't do it, you know?
Yeah. It feels kind of, I mean, like, you know, that you're supposed to share this
right.
last time, you know, and have it be dictated by what a nurse says that you should do.
Yeah.
That's, Yeah. Good. I'm glad to hear that you said you felt guilt for half a second. So, I mean, it wasn't, you're fine with it now. You don't feel any.
No, I realized like we all process things in such different ways. And that was just something I couldn't handle. Like, I think my mom knew I couldn't handle hearing her take her last breath, because my mom was there when her mom passed away. And she said she was glad that she was there, but I don't think I could have handled that. Because I was also trying to protect my daughter. Like I was pregnant and I didn't want to grieve and hurt her. So I think I just kept everything in, and that would have maybe broken me a little bit more,
Yeah. It's interesting how it seems like they know kind of, So then when was your daughter born then? Just what month?
February.
Okay. So how did you find yourself after your mom passed away and being pregnant? And now this was your first baby. So that experience then with just not having your mom around to talk to.
Oh, I think I shut down. Like I kept all my grief in because I didn't want to hurt her. And then I just didn't know how to be like super excited because she wasn't experiencing this with me. Like she was supposed to, it's all that, the loss of what was supposed to happen. Like we were supposed to be going shopping for baby stuff together. And my mom got me a crib before she passed, but like everything that we were supposed to do, she should have been my baby shower. She should have been, when I had Parker, I had her at a birth center. Like she should have been there. So with all that grief again, like the grief came up again with all the should-haves. And I'm realizing now how much I kept in during that time. Because it's all coming like up now.
Yeah. And I'm finding that like with all situations, it's like a new wave of grief with anything that happens, which is kind of crazy. And why can't it just, why can't it just stop?
Why is it just an even thing? Like, let's just, it always comes up so differently each time too.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but for me, just with my kids and experiencing their childhood and remembering mine and how my mom was and all of that, like it's just a new thing every day. Do you find that your parenting, I mean, are you looking back on how your mom parented you in order to parent your kids?
Yeah. I'm actually talking to a woman who does conscious parenting because I'm seeing like similarities in how I just would parent because that's how I was parented and how like maybe that has affected me. And I don't want it to, not in a negative way. My mom was a wonderful mom, but just like some things like she would say, like, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. And like how that shaped my life, so just working through stuff like that, which is that in turn bringing up the grief because we're talking about her so much, So when she first passed, I went to a therapist. I went and saw a therapist. But then I kept finding that I was just talking about it and not really feeling it. Also because I was pregnant and I was holding back. And I was like, oh, every time I would go, I'd be like, I'm fine. Like, I'm fine. This is not, like it was never when I needed it. The therapist was never available right when I needed it. But so now with my virtual coaching with her, we're just like feeling things, like going back in time, kind of like just feeling that loss, which I haven't felt it. I've talked about it, but I haven't felt it.
So tell me what that looks like. I've never been to therapy, so I'm super interested whenever we talk about this. So how does she help you feel it?
It's super awkward at first. She'll like have me close my eyes and then just kind of talk me through like the scenario of me being at the hospital and stuff and just like asking, how do you feel? Like, how does that really make you feel? So
you're going back to remember it and be in the moment and then just think about how,
And how would I have felt if I wasn't so cognizant of the baby inside of me? Like how would I have actually, because I just remember breaking down at my mom's apartment. Come here, honey, come here. I was breaking down at their condo and losing it, like that epic grief, the sobbing, and then just putting my hand on my belly, like, I can't do this. Like, I can't hurt her. So I just like stuffed it all back inside because I didn't want anything. Come here, honey, come sit with me. Okay. If anything happened to her after I just lost my mom, like I don't know what I would have done. So I went into protection mode. Well, but it's just like my mom, right? She protected me and I was protecting her.
Yeah. Do you ever have like anxiety, things like that?
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't realize it at the time that that's what it is, but I do, like, I have anxiety about leaving them early because both of my parents died. So I'm like, well, am I going to before? You can come sit with me. Come sit with me. Do you mind if she comes and sits?
No, that's fine.
Come here, baby. You can come sit right here. You want to sit here?
She's doing really great.
She's shy, yeah. But yeah, so that's my anxiety, is not being there for these two.
I'm just wondering how, because we know that, you know, when you suppress your grief and your feelings and everything, it eventually is going to come out somewhere, somehow. And so I guess I'm thinking of you as a mom and, you know, being pregnant. Does she tend to, like you said, that she's shy? Does she seem to have like any anxiety?
Yes. She acts really like not hard, but like she's very strong, right? And like nothing will faze her. She's okay. She's always okay. When like that's how my mom was, and that's how no, I'm okay.
How are you?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I see that and I'm trying to get her to say, it's okay. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to feel these things. Like, you can tell me, which is something that I don't know. I don't think I ever did as a kid because my parents never really showed me their emotions.
Yeah. So does it feel strange for you to try to get these things out of your kids when it's hard for you to get it out? Yeah. That's how I feel.
It's like triggering almost. And when they have the big emotions, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not used to these big emotions because I don't allow them in myself, you know?
Wow. So I did see one of your Instagram, I don't even know what they're called, reels, something, where you were dealing with your grief. So how often, and we said it pops up in different ways at different times, but do you have to take a break for yourself very often to deal with grief?
More so recently. Yeah, but it's been coming up a little bit more. And then I definitely need a time to process everything and kind of just sit. Like, I'll go to the lake. The lakes, we live right by the lake, so I'll go there. Like, the water has always been my like spot to kind of work through things. And then I'll usually make a reel about it because it's like my creative outlet to kind of get it out. So,
like I said in our messages, that I actually saw your dance move. I don't even know how I started following you, but it wasn't because of grief. Usually it is.
Yeah.
And so then when I saw your grief, a few things about grief, I was like, wow. And I really appreciate when people are open and do want to kind of communicate that way, because it is hard for a lot of people. So,
yeah. And I just wish that people had talked about it more before both my parents died, because it felt so like taboo to talk about it. And it still feels taboo. Even when I do one of those now, I'm like, oh my God, people are going to like freak out because you don't talk about death, right? Like, it's, no one wants to hear you being sad. Is like, that's like I don't know why that's in my head, but I like don't want to talk about it because I'm supposed to be this happy person. Right. And then I feel like I'm bringing everyone else down because of this life experience that I have, which stinks. Like, we should be open and be able to talk about it. And every time people do, they're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much, because no one talks about it.
Exactly.
You know,
no, I think you would find it probably pretty beneficial if you did talk about it a lot more, for yourself and for the response that you would get, because there's not many people out there that do talk about it. So
I know it's like a weird struggle inside, but it's been a work in progress. And it helps me so much when I do like those reels or just even talk about it, because then it does bring a sense of community around it, which is nice. Because everyone's going to deal with it. Like, literally everyone's going to deal with this, but we just happen to have dealt with it sooner than them. So
exactly. Yeah. So by what age were you parentless? Again, math, sorry.
34.
You've got some, an anniversary for your mom coming up. Do you do anything to remember her on those days or on her birthday or anything like that?
So she's actually got a library named after her back in where she was living. She was the head of all the libraries. So they renamed a library after her. So I'm going to start bringing the kids and my husband now on those, like on the day, her death anniversary, because it's a nice way for them to kind of get to know her, I think, and what she did. She did like all the like Rotary and a lot of community stuff. So she was well loved.
Did you see that then in, when it was her funeral time, did she have a big one?
Huge.
Wow.
Yeah. Which was, it was awesome, but then also overwhelming, right? Like so many people. And
oh, so here's the thing. So you would have been pregnant then at the funeral.
yes.
Okay. So then did you have to deal with the whole like, oh, congratulations, I'm so sorry?
Yeah. Everyone felt like, you could tell they were just like, what do I say? Like, are we happy? Are we not happy? We're not happy, clearly, but we're also happy for you. And then like, your mom is probably so happy. And I'm like, yeah, but she should be here doing this, So it was all of that back and forth, tug and pull of emotions through it all,
Yeah. Yeah. That was a fun time.
Yeah. It sucks that like so many of us had more than one thing. Like you don't just get to deal with your grief. You have to deal with this too.
If she would have been there when you had your baby, were you going to have her in the room at the time?
Well, that's an interesting question to ask, because she would definitely not have approved of a birth center birth.
Okay.
And so I almost didn't have one because I was like, my mom would want me in a hospital. My mom would want me in a hospital. But I was like, what do I want to do? So even my mom's best friend came and she's like, oh my God, this would have like stressed your mom out so much. And I was like, well, I mean, so I would have I would have told her to come in and be there if she wanted to, but I think she would have been a little bit nervous about it, but I would have asked her. Yeah.
Right.
But it's interesting because she had me in 4 hours and this exact same time with her. It was 4 hours, like easy breezy with this one.
Did your husband have parents that you kind of turned to, or who helped you?
His parents were in Minnesota. They live in well, one of them's here now, but they were in Minnesota at the time. So they weren't really there. I mean, they came down for my mom's funeral and stuff, and his mom came down for my baby shower. So they always like stepped in. Mm-hmm. And then my mom's best friend kind of took over that role for a little bit until we got our family up and running. Well, I mean, she's still part of our life, but no one really can take that place. So
yeah. So, and even now, that's difficult for you, I'm sure, is to so many other people have grandparents that they can just go take their kids to and have a break, and it sounds like you don't have that.
That's the biggest struggle. I'm looking at care.com now. We don't have that village, that quote unquote village, right? We can't just go drop them off. Like my friends are like, just come out with us. I'm like, I don't have a mom that will just take, like she would have been that person. I would have been able to just drop them off whenever. She would have been here all the time. And so that's like just another layer of it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like you said, just kind of thinking about the things that have been missed out on.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you find when you start feeling that way, how do you kind of get yourself out of that? Or do you let yourself sit in it for a bit and then what do you do?
Lately I've been letting myself sit in it. I'll just like give myself the space to like wallow, if you will, and just, and then I'll just be like, what, you had that time with her. That was amazing. Like you had an amazing relationship. Some people don't even have a good relationship with their parents. And I got to have this incredible one, but I'll let myself for a little bit and then just kind of work myself out of it.
Well, we talk about coping mechanisms quite often. So what would you say that some of your coping mechanisms might be?
Gosh, I think writing. I still journaling. I was journaling a lot when she first passed. And when I first had her, I was journaling. So that helped. And then, gosh, I don't even know. I mean, I cope by shutting down first. And with my dad, I was probably drinking too much, to get through that anxiety and stress of it. But with her, like she was my coping mechanism. When I had, I put everything into her. More so than like normal. Like she was my security blanket. She was what kind of got me through everything.
When you had your daughter, were you a stay-at-home mom? Are you now?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, to have all that time, I'm guessing that your husband was probably out at work and you were there at home with your baby. So of course.
Yeah. Like all my grief went into her, which I feel bad. I'm like, man, she took all this on, not asking for it. Right. But hopefully she doesn't know all of that yet.
No, I'm sure not. This is why half of the reason why I asked about coping mechanisms. So if you're having a down day and you sit in it for a while, do you ever think, now I don't dance, so I wouldn't know, but do you ever think like, hey, I'm going to do a dance now to feel better?
Yes, I do. Yeah. Sometimes I'll get up, I'll do I can put on a workout, like something. If I just get moving, it definitely helps me. And anytime I go take a class, like I used to host a class before the pandemic hit and all that stuff. And certain dances would definitely bring up my grief and help cope, it just let it all out. Like dancing and movement for me lets my emotions out, that I didn't realize were stored up. So yeah, definitely movement helps.
Okay, good. Do you see yourself in the future, like doing more grief related things?
I do actually.
Good.
Yeah. Like I don't want to be a one-stop shop of just grief or just dancing or just mom life. So I'm trying to merge it all together because there is so many facets of all of our lives. And I think grief is a huge one for so many of us. So yeah, I definitely have more ideas for reels and stuff with the grief and just in stories in general. So,
we've been alluding to the fact that you have an Instagram account. So yes, you do. What is your handle there?
Taking Care of Mamas. Cara, Cara, my name.
Which I love. And I felt stupid because I was like, what's your name? And then it's right in your name. So props to a good name there. I like it. So people can go find you there if they wish. Is there anything else that you do now?
Just right now, just kind of merging all those worlds and making it okay to talk about. That's the whole reason why I started the account, was to make it okay to talk about mom life, that stuff that people don't talk about. And grief was one of those things for me. So I wanted to bring that up because a lot of us don't talk about even being a stay-at-home mom and how lonely it can get. And you're grateful that you get that opportunity too. But I mean, it can get lonely, And just stuff like at birth, no one told me about, some things with birth. And I'm like, could we just talk about this? If we had talked about it beforehand, I would have known that this was going to happen after I had a baby. I didn't know this was going to happen,
Exactly. Yeah. And it's super important to bring all of that stuff up to the forefront.
With grief, if I would have known that it was going to last, it lasts a lifetime, right? But I didn't know it was going to ebb and flow like this and come out in so many different forms and days when I least expected it. If I watch a video of something totally random and it just comes out, I didn't know that was part of it. So just to have the awareness around grief and that we're all going to experience it. So let's talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Super important. And we're not going to get out of it. It's, if it hasn't happened, it's going to, unfortunately. So you might as well be prepared.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And you mentioned too before that you feel the pressure to show that happy person and be that happy person. And I think it's important that, that's just not how it is all the time. And definitely showing all of that is appreciative, I think. Tell me more about her.
Yeah, I think for one of my qualities that I love about myself is bringing people together, and people that all walks of life that would not have met in other ways. Just kind of bringing people together and being that support system for them. And that was her for sure. Everyone loved her, and they could be from different area, different walks of life and everything. And they would come together for her, like they did at her funeral, I think that's a good quality that she had, You could tell that she loved people and people loved her in return.
Mm. What did you call your mom?
Mama.
Mm.
Yeah.
Even when you're older?
Oh yeah.
Always mama. Yeah. And what did you call your dad?
Dad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you ever feel like you would want to pick up the phone and talk to your mom or?
All the time.
So if you had the chance, and I don't say this in a way of regrets or anything, but just if you had a day with your mom, what would you say to her?
Thank you. Just for everything. Like, for raising me the way that she did, because now I am the woman I am, and I am able to be the mom I am because of her. And I would just tell her she would love these kids. So I would just thank you, and that I love her. And we all miss her.
If you could say anything to your dad, what would you say?
I'm sorry for taking so long. I don't regret it because I was 17 and still, a teenager. I didn't know better, but I wish it wouldn't have taken so long. That I love him, and, I'm grateful for our relationship and the time that we did have at the end,
Yeah. You mentioned that you are the only child. So do you have aunts and uncles? So you did mention about some aunts.
I do. They're all in Wisconsin. And then my dad's sister, she tried to get all of his money. So I don't really talk to her.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. They weren't close, and her true colors definitely came out at the end. But no, I've told my husband that's I feel alone. I don't have family. I don't have a brother or sister to grieve with to help remind me of my childhood, things that I don't remember. And my aunts, my cousins all have other lives, they're not worried about me. So it was hard. It's been hard as an only child for sure.
Well, if you are interested in talking to other only children that are also adult orphans, then I can hook you up if you'd like.
Yeah.
One other question. Do you have any favorite grief related podcasts or books or anything like that have helped you?
You know what? It's an account actually on Instagram that I found. It's called Snapshots of Life After Loss.
Okay.
And it's the first thing that opened my eyes to a community of grief. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. They have a workbook that I just bought that I've been going through. That's been super helpful. But yeah, that account is the first thing that actually is whoa, there's more of us.
Parentless Podcast is recorded in Phoenix, Arizona. Find us on social media and most major podcast platforms. Music provided by Colin Lococo and the Revolving Birds. Studio and editing provided by Back Home Media and Ian Relaford. Check out one of the many shows on our network. I am your host, Stephanie Relaford.